Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday, or if you don't celebrate Saturday, happy day. For some reason, this is not showing up. There it is. Yep, wouldn't be my channel if I didn't have some technical difficulties. So this is the first time I have done one of these on a Saturday, so we'll see how this goes. But there was something that I wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about and address the elephant in the Q room, which is, hi guys, which is JFK Jr. Now, basically, there are three different kinds of people that follow Q. There are the people that believe JFK Jr. is alive and talk about it and post about it and all that. There are the people that do not believe he's alive. And then there are the people that see some merit to the theory, but will not touch it with a 10-foot pole. And there is a reason for that. One is that it makes us very, one of the dangers of if you want to call it a danger, but one of the things about the Q community is that we get picked on a lot, right? For being gullible. I mean, I've heard a million different things. I've heard Q is a quote, grifter taking advantage of elderly people, all kinds of things. So, we do tend to want to be careful with the things that we admit to out loud that we are considering in our own minds, because sometimes they do sound really goofy. Sometimes they sound crazy. Sometimes, people aren't ready for them, whatever. So I was definitely one of those people. When I decided to do this channel, it was one of the things that I swore I would never touch on, because I don't want to do a disservice to the Q community and have something out there for people to, pick on us for whatever. And it's also like, if it's true, that's wonderful. If it is, I can't prove it. If it isn't, it isn't, but, maybe we just won't talk about that. But I'm kind of feeling more like I want to just talk about it a little bit and just address it. And for the people that, don't follow Q or new to this, maybe you just stumbled drunkenly into my channel and don't even have any idea what I'm talking about. I want to go over why it is that Q and why is it that there are these three kinds of people that follow Q and all of them kind of have to have an opinion on JFK. What is it that links, JFK Jr. to Q, if anything? And I think it kind of comes from a couple things. One is that there are two Q drops in particular that I would point this to. One was on March 10th, 2018. Q said to us, quote, "Wait until you learn who has been talking to you here." So that's obviously very cryptic and got people's minds buzzing. I saw theories everywhere from Elvis to extraterrestrials to everything else. So it got people really excited about who Q actually is, even though they've stated that they are a team of people. Maybe one or two of those people are very special people. And I think we can kind of assume that, but we also don't have any idea who they would be. So that got people starting to think of all kinds of possibilities. The other Q drop that pointed us in this direction would be, let's see, I think March 8th, 2008. No. Nope. I lost it. Okay. So it was March 8th, 2018. Q said, POTUS and JFK Jr. relationship, plane crash 1999, HRC Senate 2000, the quote start, enjoy the show, Q. So in 1999, the plane crash that happened that was very noteworthy was the plane crash of obviously JFK Jr. He was with his wife, Carolyn Bessette, and her sister. And I believe they were flying to Martha's Vineyard for a wedding or something. And that is when they crashed and perished. So the year after is when Mima herself, Hillary Rodham Clinton, was added to the Senate. Sorry, I'm trying to read at the same time. So anyway, there was speculation that JFK Jr. was considering also taking that Senate place. They were replacing Daniel Patrick Moynihan or something like that. He was set to retire, and I think there were rumors that JFK Jr. was considering running for the Senate. So here we have the speculation. I won't go into too much. If you follow this stuff, you already know. If you don't, I would suggest looking into what is called the Clinton body count. That is a rabbit hole to go down. That is very fascinating. A lot of people connected to these particular people have died in very mysterious ways. A lot. There are people that have whole lists compiled. Well, I mean, at least most of them compiled. So if he was potentially a threat to her winning the Senate, you know, could that be a reason? Could him wanting to dig deeper into the death of his father and the death of his brother be a reason that somebody might be out to get him? So essentially that kind of sparked a theory that if Q is saying that this is the start, and a lot of us have this opinion that this Q plan started a long time ago, long time before Donald Trump ever ran for president. Donald Trump and JFK Jr. were also friends. We know this. Actually, a little while after JFK Jr. died, Donald Trump was on Larry King Live and being interviewed, and actually talking about his friendship with JFK Jr. And it was interesting in that interview, he had a letter. Larry King had a letter from JFK Jr. to Donald Trump offering his condolences after Donald Trump's father had just passed away. And it's interesting because in it, Larry King says, oh, and I see this letter is dated June 18th, and I believe he had died, like 3 days prior or whatever it was. It was like the letter was dated and supposedly written after he was supposedly dead. So, not that, obviously, do I want to believe this is true? Absolutely. Even if these were just normal, regular people, of course, I would wish it was true because this is 3 people's lives we're talking about. And of course, we wish that they were alive. But, am I going to put my house, am I going to bet my house on it? Probably not. I do see some reasons to think that it might be true. And I'll admit that, but there are a lot of videos out there. I went through YouTube today, actually. It was one of those rabbit holes. I'm like, I'm not going to go down this because I don't want to be crazy. There are a lot of people out there making videos that are really good. Some are pretty goofy. Some have a lot of great information. Some are pretty goofy and have some really great information. So, but I think it's important that we kind of understand why it is that people in this Q community are focused on this. Now, the other theory is that if he is potentially alive, would he possibly be the vice presidential pick to run with Donald Trump in the 2020 election? That, I have to admit, would be very exciting. And, it's weird, too, that Q has not addressed Pence, really. I think we talked about that in the last video. So, I'm trying to read some of these comments. A young girl in the crowd looks just like Carolyn as a young model, and the two boys look so much like young Jackie K. I have seen the pictures. Okay, so then that gets into Vincent Fusca, which, by the way, I found out today that Vincent means, what does it mean? I wrote it down. Vincent means destroyer or something like that, or I might have deleted it. It was like destroyer of darkness or something like that, which I thought was interesting. That's another guy that's very, it's funny because this guy, whether you think he is JFK Jr. or not, this guy that shows up to all of the rallies. He's been interviewed. He's this very, a very colorful character, I will say. I'm sorry, but he looks like he's in disguise. The fact that the guy always has a 5 o'clock shadow, no matter what time of day it is, and it's like it looks like makeup to me. I don't know, he looks like he's in disguise. I also think it's possible that that is a real human being, and but wouldn't it be cool if, we know that some of these elite people have body doubles. We've seen lots of pictures of Mima's body doubles and stuff like that for security reasons. What if it was like a reverse thing of that, where instead of having a body double that looks like this person, you kind of put prosthetics on a human being to make them look like an actual person that exists to keep them safe. So I thought that was interesting. The Clinton body count rises every day. Interesting. This plan goes all the way back to his dad. Yep. So yeah, the plan of, Q also is speculated to go back to Trump's dad, Trump's uncle, who had, was very connected. He was connected to Nikola Tesla. John Perry Barlow said in an interview, maybe they took off and are in hiding, not verbatim. Yeah, so then there are a couple things about the circumstances in which they died that I thought were interesting. They supposedly died in this plane crash, and the theory is that if somebody had placed a bomb or something, the debris field of this crash was like 14 miles wide or something like that, which is more indicative of something that exploded than a plane just kind of hitting the water. So if there was a bomb or something placed on their plane, and let's say that the good guys found out about this somehow, they found the bomb on there. Also, keep in mind that one of the other things that we kind of focus on is this almost like an intelligence war, if you want to call it that, with bad guys within the civilian intelligence agencies battling with the military, the good guys in the military intelligence agencies, and that they spy on each other and all of this stuff. So if it's possible that the good guys within the military intelligence found out that there was this plan to take him out and what it was, and somehow intercepted this bomb, turned it into, they could make a bomb that would detonate, that once you reach a certain altitude and start to come down, it would detonate. And so maybe instead of putting them on this plane, they put a guy on there, with a parachute. They turned it into a remote bomb that they could detonate, remotely, and have this guy parachute out before that would happen. One of the interesting things is that when that plane was discovered, the fuel was turned off, which is something that you have to do manually. So if you were in peril flying and going down accidentally, would you turn off the fuel? Probably not. But if you were a guy with a parachute that was going to, jump out of this plane and did not want it to crash into land and kill innocent people, you might turn off the fuel to ensure that it would not do that. The other thing is that I believe the search and recover files on this case have been sealed. They were sealed until like 2029, I believe, for a reason of national security, which is very interesting. Why would, obviously he's a high profile guy. He's the president, or he's the son of an ex-president, but he's just like a guy that owns a magazine or whatever. Why would his death the search and rescue or search and recovery of his death be a national security issue, which is very interesting. So yeah, I want to go more into the VP thing, but I'm going to read some of these comments first. Did you see here Elizabeth Wilcock used the word ilk? I did. Unrelated, but like I said, I have been seeing it everywhere now, and I just have to laugh to myself. It's everywhere now. I had never seen or heard that word. Mandela effect, people, I'm telling you. You just yesterday saw Trump-Pence 2020. Interesting. Where did you see that? I know yesterday or the day before, Trump put out a tweet saying that he was holding a rally, I believe in Orlando, Florida, on the 18th of June, and he was going to be announcing his VP choice for the 2020 election. And he said, he worded it as, I will be joined by Melania and Pence and his wife. So obviously that would make it, make one speculate that Pence would be his VP choice. But that's not necessarily what it's going to be. So there was supposed to be some military parade on 11/11 of last year that couldn't happen, and people were speculating that he was going to be revealed then. It was supposed to be replaced by this 4th of July event that's going on in DC. Now I'm hearing stuff about maybe possibly Mount Rushmore, and these are two events for the 4th of July, and people are speculating maybe it'll happen at one of those. The other thing is that, and I should address this too. In a Q&A with Q, because they do that sometimes, somebody asked specifically, is JFK Jr. alive? And Q specifically said no. So in one way, you could say that's the end of it. But also we do know that misinformation is necessary at times. And if somebody's if he were alive, and his wife and his wife's sister, that means that they have been living in protection for almost 20 years. So of course, their security is the most important thing here. Obviously, we'd all be very excited to hear that they were alive, but if things weren't in place to make sure that they were protected, of course, they're going to try to still make people believe that they are dead, because it's not just the good guys watching 8chan and the Q drops. It's the bad guys too. Conquering darkness. Thank you. That's what Vincent Fusca means. If this were about anyone else, I'd say it's crazy. But considering what happened to his dad and his uncle, and the fact that he was after something Hillary wanted, I could see him faking his death. See, I don't know if I see... I don't think it would be about faking his death. Again, whatever, possibility, of course, but I think it would be more likely that there was a plot to take him out, and that they used that to, I get what you're saying, but I'm saying that that circumstance was there first and that they went with it. Maybe they didn't even know. Maybe they showed up that day to get on their plane, and maybe something happened from there. I also heard something about them being, they were delayed 45 minutes from getting on their private plane for some reason. So maybe something was happening then. The body pulled from the ocean was an obvious mannequin. Yeah, then there's that. He was cremated almost instantly. There was no autopsy, or at least not one that was public or unsealed. Yes. You heard 100-mile radius blocked off all around Mount Rushmore. Yeah, I heard that too. That's really interesting. Yeah, so he was definitely an important person, and could possibly have been planning to go after something that, you know, bad people wanted. He might have been a threat in other ways too. You know, he was not a deep state puppet, the same way his dad was a target for not being a deep state puppet. And we know what happened to his father. So yeah, I don't know. It's very fascinating. And it's also one of those things that it's one of the only rabbit holes that's actually fun, like happy. You know, most of these things that we look into and have to consider and research and whatever are so dark and so ugly. And although there are ugly elements to this, the theory of the outcome that he's actually alive is actually one of the only rabbit holes that's like actually positive. It also is not that far-fetched. I mean, when we look at some of the things that we are learning through researching the stuff that Q points out, it's like it would almost be the least of the incredible stories. The fact that, I mean, we know people go into witness protection all the time for all different reasons. And these are just, you know, regular old people. Of course, this is a man that some people would want to protect heavily and would have more resources and things like that. So it's not all that far-fetched, you know? I think we all get a little bit of cognitive dissonance when it comes to things being a crazy, wacky story. I mean, we watched Building 7 fall just out of sympathy for the other two buildings. So him being alive would not necessarily be the craziest thing that we've seen. His father was shot by a lone gunman from the Texas Book Depository. Move along. Yeah, I ain't buying it. So yeah, there's part of me that's like really wants to go to any of these events just on the off chance that that's possible. Also, Trump said in his tweet when he's talking about announcing his VP at that rally that it will be a historic event. Well, on one hand, when isn't a Trump rally a historic event? He's always doing or saying something. But also, I don't know. We've learned not to get our hopes up, right? I have, at least. And I would really like it to be true. Kate, you can't find any Building 7 or 9/11 or SH stuff on YouTube. Isn't that telling? Yeah, it's interesting about YouTube because YouTube now, when you do searches for anything, the first page at least is going to be like, you know, videos from MSNBC and CNN and all of that. And it's really not like, who comes to YouTube for that kind of content? Obviously, those all have their own platforms. If you know, are interested in their information, you go to those platforms. I feel like YouTube is really for the fringe stuff, really for the, you know, the stuff that independent journalists or just independent people are putting out there that isn't the mainstream media. So it is frustrating when you go to YouTube and search for things and find bupkis. The final head blow came from the driver. I saw that video too. I think actually I've seen a few times. Was one of them, I believe, was one of the very first videos I saw of Bill Cooper giving a lecture. And he showed that video on repeat. And just the people in the audience, you could hear them gasp, the people that were watching it in his lecture. It was crazy. Edge of Wonder covered this as well. At least I think it was their video I watched. He created the magazine George to initially out George Bush as the one responsible for his dad's death. Yeah, then you get into a lot of fun things that, like, okay, if you were sitting and waiting for 20 years to be able to be public and make public the things that these horrible people have done, not only to your family, but the world, you might have some time to get a little creative and have fun with it. And so there are things that get me excited when, you know, they could be these little nods to let those of us that are looking into it kind of know that we're on the right track or whatever. One of the things is that At the Trump rallies, okay, when I went to the Trump rally, I got in early with my friend because she's disabled. And so we sat there for hours, hours inside while they played like the same 9 songs on a loop. And so I got to know these songs very well. I mean, they're all songs that we've all heard before, but when you sit there listening to the same 9 songs on a loop for hours and hours and hours, you don't forget them. And something that stuck out to me that was kind of funny was that some of these songs were, you know, kind of typical, or they would make sense for a presidential rally, especially one for Trump, like Macho Macho Man and like We Are the Champions or whatever. And then there were a few that were just so weird. And actually every video that I've seen from the Trump rallies all across the nation seem to play these same songs. And one of them is Candle in the Wind. When you have Candle in the Wind sandwiched between, you know, YMCA and something else, it kind of sticks out to you as being a very odd choice for a song played at a presidential rally. And what do we know about the song Candle in the Wind? Well, it was written about Marilyn Monroe. Well, who did Marilyn Monroe, who was she connected to? Another one is a song called, what is it called? I'm gonna look it up. It's a Rolling Stones song, Sympathy for the Devil. And hopefully this doesn't start playing when I open it up. But I mean, in this song, it's specifically, there's a lyric that says, "Who killed the Kennedys?" It also is when you guys are done with this, go read the lyrics to that song because they're very strange. And also kind of prophetic, and knowing what we know now with Q, I have a whole different perspective on that song. What was some of the other songs that they play at the rally? Anyway, they're just some of these kind of hat tippy kind of things that are exciting and weird, and you think to yourself, what on earth is the purpose of putting this song in the rally if it's, you know, not some kind of a message or whatever. The driver theory is Bill Cooper, and I like Bill, but I don't buy it because there were 2 people in the middle seat between the driver and Jack. Yeah, I just learned recently that's another Mandela effect, that people remember it as being a normal car with 4 people in it, and now it suddenly has this middle row with 2 extra people. George Sr. was watching during drive-by. There's film showing this. That's interesting. I've never seen that. Although I have seen pictures of what's supposed to be George Sr., I think outside the hospital where they took him. Yeah, so those songs are kind of interesting. And then there was one video that kind of caught me today where you think about if this goofy thing is true, where he's alive and dressing up and going to the rallies and whatever, there are pictures out there of a woman that looks very much like his wife, and they go to all of these rallies. They obviously have, very VIP status. They get to sit right directly behind him. He kind of comes and goes as he pleases. One of the things is that something I know from personal experience is they don't let you bring outside signs in or pens, because I was trying to do that. I was going to just like write Q on my forehead, like anything I could do. And Secret Service was like, nope. But Vincent Fusca is allowed to do that apparently, because he has signs where he's written weird things on it, or he brings his own pictures and holds them up. And yes, yeah, she does. She looks so much like Carolyn. And then there are people that are analyzing the crowd, looking at some of these. A couple people that look like, younger people that look like they could definitely be the son and daughter of JFK Jr. and Carolyn. They look very much like them. And that's exciting too, to think about. Not only have they been alive, but living life and having children and all of that. So yeah, I agree. Way too much evidence of JFK Jr. exists. But I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get other people's hopes up. And I also don't want to make us all look like buffoons. And because I don't know why it's such an easy thing to pick on. Because like I said, there are so many other things that are way crazier than that. It actually almost makes sense. And at least to me, maybe I'm just too far gone, you guys. Oh, Rob showed up, so nobody cares about me anymore. You guys can just talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna look at the notes I had made because I know I had other things on here that I wanted to talk to you about. That went over the Larry King thing. Yeah, so, and then also I've got people, like I have a friend of a friend who swears that they saw him in New York City getting a pizza one time. And so could she be wrong? Yeah, absolutely she could. Like we can all be mistaken sometimes or whatever, but this is somebody that I have a lot of respect for and I know she wouldn't lie about it. But also if you were living in protection, would you be out in New York City as recognizable as you are getting a pizza? I don't know. I don't know what the story is there. But the other thing is that either way, we'll kind of know for certain soon. If he doesn't pick him, you know, we'll kind of know when he picks his VP, even though it's possible he could announce Pence as his VP and then change it later. But either way, it's just one of those things. Yeah, Rob, get out. I think the fatal shot came from a Secret Service agent in the car behind his. Yeah, I don't know. One of the things that I felt was really interesting about that scene with JFK was that his wife jumped out of the car and started to crawl on the back hood of the car to get away from the car. Don't you think that, at least to me, if I was in a car and there were bullets flying and I didn't know where they were coming from, I would get down in the car. So that almost tells me that she, the only thing that would get me to exit the car into the open world would be if I saw something that made me think that the bullets were coming from inside the car. He already named Pence. Where was that? Jackie was trying to get out of the car, so the driver theory is kind of strong. I don't discount it. Hence the bullet found on the hospital bed. The Secret Service and the CIA killed Kennedy for sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole other thing. And then think about if you were, obviously this gripped the entire nation, but imagine if you were his son. And to have these open questions, these reasons to believe that your father died at the hands of somebody else, that, that this didn't have to happen or whatever, you would be angry. And so you might want to look into it. And that might make you a threat to the people that possibly did it. And her complete submission immediately after. Yes, that is weird too. She realized the enemy won and she had better play straight, or she was next. Or the shot could have come from a guy in the sewer shooting from a gutter. Maybe her protective, I think you mean, instinct kicked in. She wore the bloody dress to show the world what he did. Anthony, I see your comment. I don't know if I'm going to touch that. That might be another thing that I don't touch on this, at least not on this platform. But I feel you on that. POTUS will be announcing second-term presidential run with First Lady Melania, Vice President Mike Pence, and Second Lady Karen Pence on June 18th in Orlando, Florida. I saw that, but I also don't think that necessarily means it's going to be Pence. I think that one would assume if we weren't conspiracy theorists over here, one would assume that would mean that he was picking Pence. But I'm just saying there's always the possibility of a of a surprise. It is kind of vague. And it is weird that, yeah, I don't know. I find that weird. And the fact that they said that that he said it was going to be a historic event. But when doesn't Trump talk things up? He has every right to. That's for sure. Conspiracy realists. That's very true. Trump is very stable and does what he wants. Ain't it the truth? Kate, why won't he even mention the words, I feel you? Oh, why? Okay. Kate won't even mention the words, I feel you. Why is it such a red flag? People, the fact that Kate won't say the words, those words, tell you how to, well, exactly. Tells you how effed up this has all become. Exactly. The fact that we can't talk about like a lot of things without being labeled or even being censored, whatever, that's the major problem here. It isn't that we are sitting here saying that we have all the answers. That's definitely not what I'm doing. It's that we cannot talk about it. And part of the reason I do this channel is because I am hoping to just, help people open up their minds as it is. But also the other reason is because I think that when we think about the implications of this stuff being true, okay, if these things were possibly true, I know a lot of us get very complacent thinking, why aren't we just getting the truth? Why aren't they just coming out and broadcasting this and just like getting it over with? And that's definitely how I have felt for a very long time. But I also have started to think more about people that are directly affected by these things. Once you expose that thread, you cannot help but have people start to pull at it and ask questions and want to know more. And most of these things are just absolutely devastating, are going to be absolutely devastating to people potentially. If these things are true, this is not just like, oh, wow, that's really messed up that, these evil people had the potential to do that. We're talking about people that maybe have lost loved ones, even children. And that's going to be possibly a lot of people in our country that these things directly affect. And how are they going to hold up if it's just dropped on their lap? Welcome to the USSR. Indeed. Kate, I won't mention it again. I don't want you to get taken down. Thank you. I love you too. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too, is that there are some, like all of this stuff is being covered by people. I don't really think there's anything that I could say or add that is not already out there. And I don't want the pressure of being the informer, and I think that is another reason why we've got this operation set up with it centered around an anonymous board where people can speak freely and not have to take ownership of the things that they are theorizing, because sometimes the craziest theories that come out in our minds end up being true, but we'd be too embarrassed or too nervous to say them out loud if we were attached to them. So, on one hand, to have those anonymous voices is really important. And that's where a lot of the really important work gets done. And it's kind of in this community of getting this information put together and out to people, you kind of need both. You need the people that are anonymous, that are doing that hard work, that are really putting those ideas out there, and then for other people to disseminate and to break apart and to figure out if it's true or not. But then you also need people to relate it to other people, relay it to other people, and be an actual human being that is tangible, that somebody can look at and trust and get an idea for. And, because a lot of people won't take information from an anonymous source and believe it. It's hard enough for people to believe anything from even somebody that they trust. I mean, think about some of us in here that have some of these notions and take them to family members and friends or whatever, and they look at us like, they're going to lock us up and call the guys with the big nets to come and get us. All right, scrolling up. Do you think a historical event would be for a not so popular person as Trump and who is already a sitting vice president? I'm surprised there isn't a blanky blank every week thanks to Q Team and Trump protecting us. Yeah, that was another thing. Last night, I don't know if you guys watched Sean Hannity. I was actually not watching Sean Hannity. I was doing something else. And I started getting text messages from a few different people being like, are you watching this? And so I had to put it on. Excuse me, to burp. So I put it on and it was very weird. Like the feeling of it was weird. He had this whole panel of people. And it did just kind of feel different. Although we've gotten our hopes up a few times with like Hannity because Trump says to watch, and then we're like, oh, something for sure is going down tonight. And, then it, sometimes there is interesting stuff. Sometimes there's really cool stuff that you want to share, but we're like waiting for the big thing. And he kind of alluded to something coming towards the end of the show, and then it got interrupted with the press conference for the Virginia Beach shooting. And it went on for like 10, 15 minutes or so and ended literally like to the second of when Hannity ended. So it was just, I felt like symbolic of, whether it was or not, it was very symbolic of how your attention is over here and they can take your attention away over here. Your dad calls you cuckoo. Say, Dad, chill out. I saw a 5-part documentary called The Men Who Killed Kennedy that was made by the BBC. Very convincing. You'll sit there for 5 hours. Interesting. I'll check that out. I have become desensitized to all these shootings. It's sad but true. Exactly. It is very sad, and it is also very true. Happy June. 2 things I want to say. 1, how many James Bond movies have we seen before someone faking their death? 2, POTUS ends every rally with "You can't always get what you want," JFK Jr.'s favorite song. Thank you for bringing that up. That was another song that I was trying to think of before. I believe also that in the final edition of George magazine, that was like the final quote of the last edition. He quoted that song kind of loosely. And so that is very interesting. I feel like there's one more song too that I was that was just super odd, and it was like, this can have no other meaning or like reason for putting this in your presidential rally other than like to be a nod or like a wink. Yeah, the Hannity thing was weird. I didn't watch the rerun. I didn't see it. If anybody watched the rerun and can tell me what happened at the end. I mean, obviously it wouldn't have been something major because I would have heard about it 11 times by now, but still interesting. And, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating that like we have to sit here and wait for important things to happen. But I don't know. Also, I wonder, like, those of you that follow all of this stuff, what have you guys heard as far as like the 4th of July? Because I really want to know. I had initially heard that there was going to be some huge presidential thing on the 4th of July in Washington, D.C. Now I'm hearing Mount Rushmore. And I still don't know what the official thing is yet, or if there is something official. Has Trump said anything officially about where he'll be on the 4th of July or what he plans to do? Oh, it looks like I'm frozen. I don't know if you guys can still hear me or not, but I'm looking, at least it looks like it's frozen for me. Oh shit, I just thought, before you go, you're going to tell us who the guy in the painting was. Yes, it wouldn't be a live chat if that didn't get brought up. Glitching. I'm glitching out here, guys. Glitching out. I'm like Nancy Pelosi over here. Yeah, it came back to me. Yeah, so I think that was it. I didn't really have anything else. I just wanted to address the JFK Jr. thing, because if something does go down, and, I guess we should start prepping our minds for insane things like that just in case, but also not get our hopes up, unfortunately. And it feels like every day I could come on and do a live because there's so much going on every single day, but obviously my life does not permit that. I have too many hamster cages to clean, and that's about it. Prepping our minds for the FEMA camps. Ugh, the FEMA camps. That might be the most terrifying rabbit hole I went down. One of them. Like top 5. That was one of the worst. And yeah, I don't know. I toy with how much to get into on this channel because I don't want to get in trouble and I don't want to get censored. And I just, like I said, it wasn't really my goal with doing this, was to be like the person to expose all of these things. I just like to open people's minds to what is potentially going on here, which I'm pretty sure is happening. So yeah, if anybody has anything else they want to add or whatever, otherwise, I'm going to go clean a hamster cage. This is why my mom didn't let me have a hamster when I was younger. It's starting to stink kind of, and we've had it for 2 weeks. FEMA won't happen now. The beast didn't win. That's true. I do feel a sense of security. I will say that. I feel very safe, even though I'm finding out about all these things that are just make the world seem very volatile, like we were just so close to just total and utter destruction. But at the same time, I really do feel like we are in protective hands now, and we are all good. So anyway, guys, I saw a video on time traveler from the future last year, and he mentioned JFK Jr. was alive. See, that time traveler stuff is one of my favorites. I love that. The John Teeter stuff or whatever, I am all about that. If you want to send me what you saw, if you come across it again, I would really appreciate it, because those are one of my, that's another rabbit hole that's just fun. It's not dark. What's going on with Mount Rushmore? Edge of Wonder said it was cordoned off for 100 miles last night on their live show. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm going to look into it, though, because there is a chance that I want to be at one of those 2 events. I mean, this is history here, people. Even if it's just like, even just to stand with a bunch of patriots and people that love this country, it's kind of worth the trip. It's definitely worth the trip. It's just a matter of if I can make it work or not. What have you heard about Vegan Mike and Cappy? I haven't heard anything about either of them, really, although I did see that Vegan Mikey posted a tweet the other day that was kind of, sounded very, maybe like it was song lyrics or a poem or something like that, very kind of sadly, cryptically maybe about Cappy and losing his friend. That was all I saw. I don't have any news on that front, unfortunately. I love my tinfoil hat. Yeah, anyway, all right, guys. Thank you, guys. This was fun to do on a Saturday. Always trying new stuff.